Hila, thank you so much. And I am thrilled to be here with the CSP program. For those of you who have not met me, I am Susan Black. I am the founder and CEO of Wowzitude, and we specialize really in Jewish heritage tours. We do tours all over the world. We're in over 200 different cities, and we're bringing them to CSP 1 month at a time. And we're absolutely thrilled to be with this group. We've been with you before on a number of our trips, and this time, for the very first time, we are in fact all going together live into Athens, Greece. As Gila said, we had a change of plans. We will be rescheduling Thessaloniki, but we wanted to keep it within Greece, and through our incredible guide network, we have about 150 guides here at Wowzitude. We go to over 200 destinations in total. We were able to now work with Demetria, who I will introduce in just 1 minute. But Athens, some of you may know, is in fact one of the most important yet overlooked cities in Jewish heritage. And you'll find out more with Demetria. She's not only a licensed Athens-based guide, but she also holds a PhD. She's a global trainer of all tourist guides throughout Europe. And of course, she specializes in Jewish heritage and inclusive storytelling. So we are really thrilled that we were able to, at the very last minute, when our original guide had a personal crisis, quite frankly, we were able to, through our network, reach Dimitri, and she very graciously stepped in. So I'm excited to see this too. It's a first for Wowzitude. So Athens offers a profound and moving lens into Jewish life, from ancient Romaniote roots when the Romans were there to the modern community's resilience post-Holocaust. And on today's interactive walking tour, we're going to explore synagogues, memorials, neighborhoods that bear witness to this long and rich history, all while soaking in the beauty and vibrancy of modern-day Athens. So if you haven't been with Wowzitude before, this is, in fact, as Gila said, an interactive experience. Please feel free to drop your questions and comments in the chat. We love hearing from you. We sometimes get quite a lot, but we will try to get there. So be patient, because I try to not step on our guide's narrative, but I'll interject when I can the questions there. Also, if you would shut off your videos, that way we can all take a look at what we're seeing in Athens. I'll be shutting mine off as well. And we'll be sending you a special new trip kit focused on the Jewish heritage in Athens by the end of next week. So you'll be able to then have 8 pages of recipes and drinks and book recommendations and maps and movies and so much more, which is all part of the immersive Wowzitude experience. And each month we're going to be coming to you, starting this month, of course, with a different Jewish heritage walking tour. So we are excited about that. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I want to introduce Demetria, so we can all get to Athens together. And so excited for this trip. Demetria, welcome.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you very much for your introduction. So I'm Demetria. Hello from Athens. And today we will be walking together in the city center of the city in order to discover together the rich Jewish past of Athens. I know that some Greek cities are very famous for their Jewish past, but Athens has many things to see and show at the same time. So I will start with this peaceful street where we have the 2 most iconic buildings of the Jewish heritage and the Jewish community, the 2 synagogues of the city, the one on the left-hand side, which is the newest, and facing the other on the right-hand side, which is the oldest. We will start with the newest synagogue. The presence of the 2 synagogues show the presence also of the 2 communities in the city of Athens. The first one, the synagogue of Beth Shalom, you can see the title high up at the top of the building. Beth Shalom meaning the house of the peace, written of course in Greek. And we can see a beautifully building constructed out of marble with a nice wooden door also. It's the synagogue that was constructed in 1935, and it corresponds to the Sephardic tradition of the Jewish community in Athens. It was constructed by the community of Sephardi that came to Athens in 1492 after the expulsion from Spain. They migrated first in the west coast of Asia Minor and later on in the Greek islands, and later on they came to Athens. We can see also at the entrance of the building a very important memorial of the Holocaust, which has the shape of a book. It's called the Memorial of the Righteous Among the Nations. You can see the shape of the book. The front page is decorated with a tree, which is the symbol of life. And inside the book, we can see on the pages written the names of Greeks who helped, who tried to help Jewish people, Jewish citizens during the Holocaust and during the occupation in the Second World War. Some pages are empty. We can see to fill in with the names of other people. And at the bottom of the monument, we can see an inscription written in Greek, a Talmud phrase that says, whoever says one life says the world, the entire world. The monument of the righteous among the nations. So inside the book, we will see the names of all these people who helped the Jewish community in the Holocaust. We will explain the whole story because there were many Greeks among the local authorities also that helped the Jews. 1935, the date of the construction of the second synagogue, and just opposite, we will see the oldest synagogue that corresponds to the second community of Jews in Athens, the Romaniots. It's the synagogue of Etz Chaim. This is the most popular name that the Romaniot synagogues follow in Greece. Etz Chaim meaning the tree of life. This synagogue is used only for great religious celebrations, while the other synagogues is used quite regularly. I will show you a picture of the two synagogues from the interior also. As you can see the difference between the Romaniot tradition. I need to be the host in order to share some pictures. So if you'd like to make me host, I was saying there is a difference in the traditions of the Romaniots and the Sephardi in terms of the interior arrangement of the synagogues, in terms also of the rituals they follow. So in Greece, actually, we have three communities. The first one are the Romaniots. This is the oldest community of Jews in Greece. And these are the Jews that came to Greece in the ancient times. At what point specifically, we cannot actually tell. So there are different versions. There is one version mentioning that the first Jews came to Greece after the destruction of the first temple and the Babylonian captivity and exile, which means in the 6th century BC. There's a different mention mentioning the presence of Jews in Greece after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 after Christ. And of course, there's another version that talks about the presence of Jews in the Hellenistic period. This community that was founded in the ancient times in any case forms what we call today the Romaniots. I remind you, Romania was the east part of the Byzantine Empire. So these were Jews that came to Greece in the first ancient diaspora. They were integrated and assimilated by the local community. They learned the Greek language, and they kept the religion. So they developed a dialect later on. The dialect was called Yevanic, which means Greek Jewish language. So if I'm the host right now, perfect, I will
Bila,
share.
you are made a co-host, so
Thank you
should be
very
able to
much.
do that.
I will
And-
share a picture. Yes, Susan.
No, no worries. I was just saying, for those of you who have access to the chat on Zoom, we love getting your questions, but also I've annotated some of the points that Dimitri is saying. So feel free also to put that in. So you should be able to show now.
Perfect. So I will show you a picture of the Romagnot synagogue, the interior. You can see that. We can see the arrangement, the different arrangement of the interior part. The seats are facing the one, the other, and they are not facing a hall. You can see the wood that was used for the construction of the interior. And I will show you also a picture. So we can see actually Jewish community of Athens attending a ritual inside the synagogue. And I will show you the interior of the Sephardi synagogue, which is the classical arrangement of a synagogue you may know. Just a second. Which is this one. Perfect. So you can see the seats in this case are facing the hall directly. So the two traditions are different. They have many things in common. And at some point, the Sephardi have integrated the Romagnot tradition, we would say. Now, the next very important point of our tour, it's the sunset at the moment in Athens. So I don't know if you are able to see the ruins. We are in the ancient cemetery of the city, which is called Keramikos. We can see the ruins of the graves straight ahead. And at this location, they chose to construct another memorial of the Holocaust, another memorial that commemorates all those Jewish people that were deported and exterminated during the occupation of Greece in the World War II. So the monument, you won't be able to recognize it because it has this shape right now, and it's used by local people. This is a kind of a park. It's the Star of David, actually, which is broken. You can see how interactive the monument is with local people. So this is the central part of the star, which is broken. And these are triangles scattered all around the place at irregular distances and pointing towards the places in Greece where Jewish communities were located and that were exterminated in the World War II. The Star of David as the memorial of the Holocaust.
So Demetria, we have several questions.
Yes, please.
First of all, we have several who are wondering if services are still held in both synagogues today.
Thank you very much for the question. In the oldest synagogue of the Romagnot tradition, only special religious celebrations are held, while the newest Sephardi synagogue is regularly used. It's regularly in service.
Super. And also, since they are, Eitz Chaim and Beth Shalom are two very different synagogues with different backgrounds, does the liturgy differ between both of them? Do they use Greek in one or other languages? What's the language that's used aside from Hebrew?
No, they don't use Greek. They use the official language, actually, Hebrew, in both of the synagogues. The traditions are a little bit different. They have different ritual in both of the synagogues. But as the time went by, since the Sephardi community was bigger than the Romagnots, and since the Romagnots were so truly integrated in the Greek tradition, the Sephardi, let's say, from a certain point of view, took over and they integrated the Romagnots tradition. So right now, we would say that they follow the same ritual, but it didn't start like that. At some point, there was a rivalry between the two communities. Which one of the two communities consider themselves as more Jews, let's say, because the Romagnots felt themselves quite Greek. Sephardists, they kept they felt more, let's say, close to the Jewish tradition. So at first, the two communities started as they had a kind of rivalry in between them, but later on, the time went by, the Sephardists, let's say, dominated over the Romagnol tradition.
Awesome. So we're going to ask some of the questions here. That's the traditional way we do it at Wowzitude, so we don't get too far away. But we'll make sure that that you still can keep to your narrative. And for those of you who may have hands up or anything else, just feel free to put it in chat. I'll stack rank it. And as long as we're not walking too far away, we'll wait to the end to ask it. But if we have to ask it because we're leaving a spot, then
of course.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. The questions give me also the motivation to mention things that I hadn't mentioned. I think from here you have a much better view of the monument. Now it looks more like the Star of David, with the central core, which symbolizes the core of the Jewish community that stayed in Greece to follow the whole tradition, and the broken parts, the broken triangles scattered all around the place. It's the most important memorial of the Holocaust in Athens. So talking about the communities, you give me the chance also to talk about a third community, Jewish community in Athens, that came with the liberation of the country from the Ottoman occupation and the formation of the modern Greek state. Jews that came from the north part of Europe, Ashkenazis, in 1830, with the Bavarian king Otto. You may know that Greece was occupied for 4 centuries by the Ottomans, the Turks. When the country was liberated, a Bavarian king came over here, and he brought alongside with him Jews, citizens from Bavaria. So these were the third community, and these are the Jews that formed the first community of the modern Greek state. So we talk about a continuous inhabitation of the place of Jews from different historical periods and different regions. The Romagnots, the oldest, the second one, the Sephardi, in the 15th century after Christ, and the third one, the Ashkenazis, in the 19th century after Christ. The oldest testimony that shows the presence of a Jew in Greece is an inscription that was found in a religious center, a sanctuary in the district of Attica, dedicated to a healing god of the ancient times. I will show you the inscription. I haven't been able to find the original inscription on the stone, but I will show you the inscription written in Greek. It dates back to the 3rd century BC. So this is the inscription. With the red color, I outlined the name of the Jewish citizen, Moschos, Moschionos, Iudeos. Moschos is the name of the citizen. Moschionos is the name of his father. Jew, it's the term that defines either the religion or the region. 3rd century BC, we don't know if at that period of time the term Jew was used in order to define the region from where the citizen came, or in order to define the religion. Most probably it talks about the region. So it's about a Jewish citizen who was not citizen, a Jewish slave, actually, who followed an ancient ritual. He went to the healing center of a god. He followed a pagan ritual. So that shows also that at that period of time, religions coexisted and people from different religions followed different rituals. He slept over in the religious center of the god. He waited for the god to appear in his dreams in order to give him an advice. And when he woke up, he offered that inscription to the god, and he was liberated. So this is the oldest inscription that was found and that witnesses the presence of a Jew. So this Moschos is considered as the first Jew in Greece. Nevertheless, we have to mention that the oldest inscription that talks about the presence of a synagogue in Athens was found in the archaeological site that we will see quite soon in the ancient Agora. I will show you the inscription, and in a while we will see also the archaeological site. The inscription, which is not exactly an inscription because it doesn't have any writing, but this is the plaque. It's a plaque out of marble, which is decorated with a menorah. And you can see also the lulav on the left corner. This plaque out of marble was found in the archaeological site of the ancient Agora inside the building, which was used in the ancient times as the building where they kept the archives. The building was called Mitron. Today it is believed that this ancient building, which was used for administrative reasons, was transformed later on into the synagogue. And they believe that this is the oldest synagogue that was found. We can prove that in Athens. Several people mentioned that this is also the synagogue that Paul of Tarsus had used when he came to Greece in order to preach the gospel. The truth is that the menorah, as you know, was used as a symbol of the Jewish community after the 3rd century after Christ. So when Paul of Tarsus came over here, Saul of Tarsus and later on the Apostle Paul came in Athens, he must have preached in a synagogue that dates from the 1st century after Christ. So even if this synagogue was founded in the 3rd century after Christ, it is not nevertheless the synagogue where St. Paul had had used in order to preach the gospel to the Jewish community. The archaeological site where this plaque with the menorah was found, it's just on the right-hand side. You can hear the sound also today. It's a Friday. So this is the site of the ancient Agora, with the temple of Hephaestus over here, an ancient temple dedicated to the blacksmith, the god of bronze and metal. And at the base of this temple, somewhere over there, in 1977, they found this plaque decorated with the menorah and the lulav. The administrative building of the ancient times is believed to have been transformed into the synagogue of Athens. So you may see that a little bit better. It's somewhere over there, the ancient building which became a synagogue. So this must have been a synagogue that dates from the 3rd century after Christ.
Amazing, amazing. Now this was actually, Demetria, the very, very oldest. Is it just in this area or in all of the region? Whoops.
The oldest synagogue in Greece dates from the 2nd century BC, and it was found in the island of Delos. It's an island, small island, next to the island of Mykonos. This is the oldest synagogue that was found in Greece, and it dates from the 2nd century BC. So this synagogue, if there was the menorah used, that means that the synagogue dates after the 3rd century after Christ, when the menorah is used as the symbol of the Jewish heritage. So it was a synagogue, but it was not the synagogue that St. Paul, the apostle, had used to address himself to the Athenians and the Jewish Athenian community.
Amazing. Okay, great. Now, I know we're getting questions also, by the way, about modern Jewish life in Greece. We will get to that, I promise. We're just setting the background here. So I just wanted to mention that to those. And again, as Gila has written down, if you direct questions in the chat to @SusanBlatt, the chat's not disabled, it's just directed to me, and then I can stack rank the questions, just a little housekeeping.
So yes, since you mentioned the modern life of Jewish community in Greece at the moment, Athens has the biggest Jewish community in the entire country. At the moment, there are more or less 5,000 Jews in the entire country. 3,000 out of them, they form the Jewish community of Athens. And the 2,000 are scattered all around the country. Before the Holocaust, we used to have 80,000 Jews in the entire country. 60,000 out of them, they used to live in Thessaloniki that had the biggest Sephardic community, very well known as the Mother of Israel. I remind you, in the 16th century after Christ, Thessaloniki became the Mother of Israel. So almost after the expulsion of the Sephardic Jews from Spain, they settled in the city of Thessaloniki among all the other places, and they founded the local community over there. In the 16th century after Christ, the majority of the population of Thessaloniki were Jews, another smaller part Muslims and Christians, and it became like an iconic city where all the three communities lived peacefully, the one next to the other. So some of these Sephardis of the 15th century, they migrated also to Athens, and one of them was, let's say, the founder of the Jewish community in Athens, Bohor Yusurum. Bohor Yusurum was a Jewish from the Sephardic community that came to Athens after making a long trip, first in the west coast of Asia Minor in Izmir, then he migrated to the island of Chios, then to the Greek island of Kythnos, and his son ended up settling his house over here in Athens. So he's considered as the founder of the modern Jewish community in the city. I will continue a little bit further because we are next to the flea market of the city. We are always in the ancient agora, which is, you can see how strategically located was the synagogue. The synagogue is somewhere over there, and you can see where is the Acropolis with the Parthenon. So the synagogue was located just in the foothills of the Acropolis Hill, which used to be the center of the city at that period of time. So we continue walking alongside the archaeological site of the ancient agora. You can see at the back also the Acropolis with the Parthenon, which was the main religious center of the ancient Greek world. And that shows also at the moment the coexistence of the religions in the ancient times as well. So it's quite amazing the fact that the first Jew of Greece practiced an ancient ritual, visiting a religious center of an ancient Greek god. So we continue with the flea market. We're going to cross a part of the flea market, which is the place where the first Jews of the city developed their activity. We have to remind that in Athens, there's no such thing like a Jewish ghetto. There's no such thing as a distinct separation of the neighborhoods, like there was in Thessaloniki. In Thessaloniki, let's say that the Jewish neighborhood was separated from the Muslims and from also the Christians. In Athens, we know that the Jews used to stay in this area, Monastiraki, the flea market, a little bit further, the district of Thysio and Petralona, but it was never actually became a distinct, let's say, a well-defined area. It was a big city also after the Second World War, and that allowed many Jews to, in a certain way, hide themselves in the crowds. This is why, during the Holocaust, many of the Jews of Thessaloniki migrated to Athens, because it was much easier in Thessaloniki to identify the Jewish community than it was to Athens. And this is why in Athens, we didn't have a big percent of Jews that were deported and exterminated in the concentration camps. So I will continue with the flea market. I'm going to enter into the central part of the activity of the Jewish community, mainly in the 19th century after Christ. Merchants came over here. Most of the Jews who came over here were merchants, and they founded, yes, they founded and they established their small antique shops in this central square of the city, which is still used as the commercial center of the city, with what we call the flea markets. Now, the shops may be closed at the moment, These are open, but the traditional shops with ancient furniture, old furniture, reproductions of books and coins, at the moment they're closed. All of them are open, especially on Sundays. So this is where Yusurum, the founder of the family, the father of the family that had 7 kids, he opened up his shop. He was a tailor, actually. So all of them are the shops. He was a tailor, so he prepared clothes, and also he repaired clothes at the same time. So this is the central square of the flea market. At the moment, it's not crowded because it's closed, but on Sundays we have to imagine the place full of crowds, still selling their products. The amazing thing is that the name of the father of the family gave the name also to the flea market. So most of the Athenians at the moment, they call the square Yusurum. And the term, which is the last name of a family, is also used by the Greeks when they want to say, I'm going to the market. They keep saying, I'm going to the Yusurum. Yusurum had 7 kids. He settled in Athens in 1860. Imagine that at that period of time, the north part of Greece is still occupied by the Ottomans, the Turks. So he settles in 1860. And his house, Yusurum House, was used as the first synagogue of the modern city, because the synagogue we saw earlier were constructed after the 1900. So the first synagogue was used at the house of Yusurum. He had 7 kids. His last son migrated to Thessaloniki, in the north part of Greece when Thessaloniki was liberated in the Balkan Wars. But in 1917, Noe Yusurum returned back to Athens after the Great Fire that destroyed and burned down the main part of Thessaloniki. Many Jews migrated at that period of time because this Great Fire destroyed mainly the shops of the Jewish community. It's a modern flea market, but we can get an idea of how crowded the flea market of that time used to be. So that was the story of Yusurum of the 19th century after Christ. Returning back to the Holocaust and the World War II, we said that Greece has one of the highest rates of extermination of Jewish community, 95% of the Jewish communities of Greece were deported, persecuted, and exterminated in the concentration camps, which is not the same thing for the other European countries. In France, 30% were deported. In other countries, and a smallest rate. So Greece met this great catastrophe in the World War II, but in Athens, many of the Jewish people were saved thanks to the intervention, first of all, of the Archbishop of the city. The Archbishop Damaskinos ordered the priests to give fake identities and fake certificates of baptism to the Jewish citizens. Second of all, the chief of the local police gave an order to give fake identities of Greek citizens to the Jewish people. And the third was the rabbi of that time, whose name was Barzillai, who actually refused to give the records of the Jewish community to the Nazi authorities. When they asked him to give the archives of the Jewish community, first, he burned them down. He said that somebody robbed the headquarters of the Jewish community, and then he managed to escape. He disappeared as a citizen, joining the resistance of the Greeks against the Germans, against the Nazis in the World War II. So thanks to this initiative of the local authorities, like the Archbishop, the chief of the police, and also the rabbi, most of the Athenians managed to escape. This is why the monument, the Star of David, was constructed in the place where the Gestapo, the Nazis, had seized and arrested more than 1,000 Jews. They concentrated them in the camp in the north part of Athens, and then they were deported and registered for the labor, for the forced labor. So we arrived in Monastiraki Square, where we saw next by, if you remember, the Jewish synagogue. And here we can see monuments showing the presence of other religions in Athens. This is a church constructed in the 17th century after Christ. A little bit further, we can see a mosque constructed during the Ottoman occupation. This is the mosque. And at the very far end, we can see the Acropolis with the Parthenon. So we can see the presence of all the religions in the central square of the city.
So a couple of questions, Demetria. So before the Holocaust, how did the citizens of the Greek citizens, the Greek Orthodox primarily, how did they interact with the Jews? I know they were primarily, many of them were on Thessaloniki, but those within Athens and other areas, how was and for how long was the relationship there? And what changed so that it is the highest rate of Jewish deaths in all of Europe? So what changed there?
So the cohabitation of the Jewish community with the local community was quite a peaceful cohabitation. This is why the Greeks had helped the Jews in order to protect them. Many of them put their lives in danger in order to save them. And many of the Jews also had joined later on the resistance, the groups of resistance that were developed at the top of the mountains against the Nazis. So we would say that the cohabitation of the Jewish community and the Greek Christian community in Athens was a very peaceful and fruitful cohabitation. The percentage has to do mainly with special events that took place and with the fact that the local authorities and sometimes the Jewish authorities were trapped. So in Thessaloniki, for example, the highest percentage of deportation is due to the fact that the German authorities had convinced the rabbi of the city that the Jewish citizens have to register themselves for the archives of the official city. The rabbi himself invited the Jews to present themselves in the synagogue and also register themselves. So this was used by the German authorities as the best excuse to capture all the Jews, which means that the Jewish authorities, despite their willing, were involved, trapped actually by the Nazi authorities. And this is why the big percentage of deportation. I will show you a picture of Thessaloniki that shows how the Jews were gathered in the central square of the city in July 1944, humiliated, abused also, and then loaded on the trains that led them to the concentration camps. The truth is that Greece in the World War II was occupied by Germans, Italians, and also Bulgarians. So this is a map that shows the partition of Greece. As you can see with the red color, you have the German occupation. With the brown color, you have the Italian occupation. And with the green color, you have the Bulgarian occupation. The German authorities, the Italian authorities, and the Bulgarian authorities did not treat the Jewish communities with the same way. So the Italian authorities, let's say, gave a freedom for activity, a freedom also to perform their ritual, to express themselves, the Italian authorities. The German authorities, from the very first beginning, they acted in quite a violent way. This is why when in Thessaloniki, the local citizens realized what was expecting them. Most of them migrated to Athens. In Athens, it was much easier for them to protect themselves, to hide themselves in the crowds. And at that time, Athens was occupied by the Italians, who treated the Jewish community in a different way than the Nazis. This is why Athens, during the occupation of the Nazis in the Second World War, was the only city that showed the Jewish population rise. So we had a rise in the number of Jews living in Athens, while all the other cities saw a reduction of their population. After joining the war in World War II against the forces of alliance with the Greeks, many of the Jews, they joined the groups of resistance against the Nazis. But these groups of resistance had the political orientation. Some of this group of resistance belonged to the Communist Party. So several of these Jewish Greek citizens in the civil war that came after the Second World War were prohibited and denied to participate in the public life. So plenty of them left Greece and returned back to Israel, because as Jews, they were welcomed, as communists, no. So they had this double identity. They were not allowed to reveal their political orientation.
Wow. So thank you for that explanation. And by the way, bringing us right up to today, since you talked about fleeing to Israel and at that time, interesting and ironically, I've had two messages here, one from Lori Robbins from Atlanta, who read that 10,000 Israelis have moved to Greece since October 7th. And that, in fact, I took a look and is confirmed. And then also Marion Stone has messaged me that she herself was stranded in Greece during the recent attacks in Israel. She's Israeli, and she's mentioning that every Greek she's met greeted her with a big smile and interest, and everyone was kind and helpful. And as an Israeli, she felt very safe.
I can totally confirm that, because even before the 7th of October, we had a lot of Israeli tourists visiting Greece. And after the 7th of October, we have many of them, I don't know, migrating permanently, buying properties in Greece. They feel very welcome. And to be honest, for me also, visiting Tel Aviv and Israel for the first time felt like being home. Because, you know, in Greece, we have these, let's say, debate about our national identity. So Greece is located at a crossroad between West and East. So as Greeks, we always wonder if we belong to the Western world or to the Eastern world. Officially, of course, we belong to the Western world. But I have to say that visiting the central part of North Europe and visiting also Tel Aviv and Israel, visiting Tel Aviv really felt like being home. So from this point of view, I find Greeks, even in the modern times, I find great similarities between the way of life, the way of thinking of Greeks and Israelis.
Well, oftentimes on the live stream tours, I'm asked, because we go so many places of Jewish heritage, is it safe? Is it okay, especially to travel and feel that? I know that we had several questions about anti-Semitism now in Greece, and what is it like, because it's challenging now all over the world. And I'll also mention that Mary Kraft and Jeffrey Kaufman have mentioned that some commentators have noted that the church hierarchy in Greece has been antagonistic towards Jews at times. So perhaps you can comment about that, and just overall the feeling of Jews, and whether, you know, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and that whole thing that's conflated and everything just all over the world is what's happening now in Athens and in Greece.
Thank you very much for the question. To be honest, I had a group of Jews from France, actually, that came a month ago in Greece. Things are very peaceful, and Jews are, I mean, Israelis and Jews are very welcome. Of course, there is a part of the Greek population also, and people demonstrating about Gaza and also Palestine. So we have different kinds of activities taking place and events, demonstrations, sometimes strikes, sometimes concerts, in order to support the Palestinians and let's say outline what is happening today in Gaza. But I would say that in a very, very constructive way, we managed to combine both things, and we have a freedom of expression of both voices, which means you can have a demonstration taking place about Palestine in the city center of Athens, and just next by an Israeli group visiting the city. So in Athens, things are very, very peaceful. And I'm quite proud also, because we gave the step and the speech and the freedom for everybody to express himself up until today.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your explanation and your sensitivity. I do want to go back to your narrative. I know that these were burning questions because I had a lot of them come over, but let's go back to your narrative.
So yes, I would like also to show you, just a second. Yes, we will continue into the flea market, and we will finish up into the central square of the city, into the square where the central church is located, and the statue of the Archbishop who had helped the Greeks, the Jewish Greeks, in the Holocaust. Quite a lively city, as you can see. Lots of people outside at the moment. So let's pass by this music. So yes, I was saying that before the Holocaust, in Greece, there were 30 communities, Jewish communities. Most of them were Sephardists, but we had some, quite few also of the Romanians. After the Holocaust, today, we have 7 to 9 Jewish communities. And after the Holocaust, as we said, through the population, the Jewish population from 80,000 ended up being 5,000, and the three of them also, only the three of them in the city of Athens. Just a second. It's a little bit noisy. If there's another question,
we're actually okay. We don't hear the background noise. Your noise canceling.
Perfect.
Very well.
If there's another question, we still have to walk a little bit until the last stop and the statue of the Archbishop, actually. Now, I was saying that the political orientation of the Jews has not always been the same in terms of joining the Greek resistance. But the easiest group that they could join was the unorganized groups of the communists that were developed at the top of the mountains. And this is why most of them were a kind of punished, let's say, after the Second World War in the Civil War, like all the other communists. So this is quite an interesting thing. In terms of the Jewish communities in Greece, the interesting thing is to see how the different types of identities coexist, are integrated and assimilated into them, and which one of these identities prevails. For example, we would say that in the Romanian community, the identity that prevails is the Greek. They speak Greek, they speak a dialect also of the Greek and Hebrew, but they speak Greek, they follow the Greek traditions, and they keep the religion. In the Sephardi community, the identity that prevails, we would say, is the identity of the Jew, is stronger. So when the Sephardis first came to Greece, they don't feel integrated, they feel strangers, they feel different. And this is why they develop this feeling of hostility with the Romanians, because there is this competition of their identities, Greek, Jews, and Sephardi. The Ashkenazis is a total different case. They were never integrated like the Bavarians in the Greek local community. They behaved as strangers, and I would say that the main identity that prevailed for them was the identity of the north part of Europe. So this is quite an interesting thing for the ancient times. For the modern times, I would say that the interesting thing is to see how people face Jews and how the two identities of the Israeli and Jew are combined and treated by other people. For the common mind of the Greeks, Israeli is a Jew, of course, and the two identities are exactly identical. So this is quite an interesting thing, because that forms a national and a religious identity, which is quite strong. So we arrived in the central square of the city. You can see the central church. This is the Orthodox Cathedral. And our last stop for today is the statue of the Archbishop in the World War II. Damaskinos is the name of the Archbishop who had helped all the Jews during the Holocaust. We can see his name written, and the date of his birth, 1891, 1949. And at the back side, we will see an inscription that says, Archbishop Damaskinos, during the German occupation, 1941-1944, assisted the people who suffered and defended their rights and freedom and opposed strongly to the persecution and Holocaust of the Greek Jews. For me, the example of this person is the most iconic example for today, in order to see how the freedom of the expression of the religion can go alongside with the respect of the life and the protection of the biggest value, which is the value of life. So that shows in a very, very elaborate way how the respect of life can overcome every kind of belief, like the religious belief. And with this example of this very spiritual and let's say gifted person, I would like, and with this message, I would like to finish up the tour of today.